What is the configuration school of strategic development? Well, researcher Henry Mintzberg proposed 10 approaches, frameworks, or schools, if you will, for understanding how strategy arises within an organization. And the configuration school is one of those schools that houses one of his dominant theories of strategic formation, which is the 5 Ps. Now, to start with, the configuration school simply says that strategy is developed in the organization pursuant to a transformation process. That is, the organization is reacting to the environment to configure all of its resources, processes, organization in general. Okay, so the organization itself is reacting to whatever external environmental pressures or situations that it encounters, and in reacting to these, it is transforming. And this transformation process leads to what is known as its overall configuration, and this configuration gives rise to what is the organization's strategy itself. So you can think of configuration as simply how the organization organizes specific characteristics of itself and its operations, simply to meet these external requirements. Now, one of the core underlying premises is that the organization seeks stability. So the configuration process, how it transforms, always seeks to establish some level of organizational stability. Now, when that external pressure that gives rise to some level of transformation or configuration arises, the organization will react accordingly to establish whatever it sees as its particular state of stability at that time or in that moment. So the manner that it responds, or the nature of the stability that it's trying to maintain or establish, will vary based upon the circumstances. So the transformation process itself seeks to unhinge the existing level of stability, and ultimately the results in the configuration and establishment of a new type or level of stability. So this gives rise to a repeatable cycle, if you will, of consecutive sessions of environmental factors, responses, transformation in the organization, a move from one stable position to another. And so you can see it in patterns of how the organization is reacting, and you can even see it in the life cycle of the organization, if you will, because what it's doing is ultimately transforming and configuring itself to meet its operational and overall needs based upon all the pressures that do or can affect the organization. Now, another core tenet of the configuration school is that managers need to be aware of this process continually happening, and they must act to ultimately sustain this level of stability, right? The need for periodic transformation, right, requires active or strategic management such that you can go from one stage of stability to another. So these premises and understanding gave rise to one of Mintzberg's dominant theories for how strategy arises, and that's the 5 Ps. And what he said was, based upon this state of transformation and configuration, strategy in the organization ultimately derives from any number of sources. It can be a plan, a formal plan or approach or pattern to responding to the need for transformation or move to a new level of stability. So it could be formal plan or pattern. It could be a position you take with regard to how you are affected by external or environmental pressures. It can be a perspective shift within the organization. That is, a view of how you see your mission, your objectives, your vision, your overall goals, things of that nature can shift and thus give rise to a level of transformation and reconfiguration. And it can even be a ploy, that is, a response to a competitive position, perhaps, whereby you assume a position that is simply intended to cause an effect but not a long-term strategic approach, for example. So you're simply doing it to have the effect to beat out, say, a competitor in a given situation or scenario. So in summary, the 5 P's are, it could be a plan, it could be a pattern, it could be a position you take, a perspective, or a ploy. So any of these would thus be consistent with a configuration school in that you are transforming yourself and reconfiguring characteristics to meet the needs of the organization. And once again, strategy forms by virtue of this configuration process, and thus the strategy can develop as a plan, a pattern, a position, a perspective, or even a ploy. So in summary, this is Mintzberg's Configuration School of Strategic Development.